To simplify the brew system, we actually use the hose to fill up the boil kettle with the water that we're going to boil for running through the wort chiller to sanitize the chiller. There's really no need to use filtered water, and it does save your filter for future brew use instead of wasting it on just the sanitizing process. We will use the garden hose where we fill up about 5 gallons or so into the boil kettle. Now that we're done with that, we can go ahead and reconnect the hose to the brewing system. Whenever we brew with the Brewtree brewing system, we want to make sure that we practice safety first to make our brew day more enjoyable, as well as keeping sure that everything else is safe. We want to use some goggles to protect our eyes, as well as some safety mitts, such as baking mitts or any other sort of heat-resistant, flame-retardant mitts. On top of that, we want to make sure we have a fire extinguisher handy. Obvious reasons, we have the open flame that we're using to heat up the kettles. Although they are protected by burner shrouds, which should prevent any sort of sparks, it's just common sense that we should keep the fire extinguisher handy. We also want to make sure the brewing system is well away from the house or any other flammable materials. 10 feet is a good measure of how far you should keep it away from the house. Now we are going to brew. But remember, always keep the propane tank a safe distance away from the brewing system or any heat source of the brewing system, where we keep it outside the main frame. We use an igniter to ignite the burners, and we ignite through the bottom of the burner shroud. Our propane tank is on. We are going to go ahead and boil up some water to run through the chiller for sanitization purposes. We go over here to the burner control valve, turn it on just a quarter of a turn. We ignite the burner with a long lighter, or this is a barbecue lighter, or any other sort of ignition device where your hand's far away from the thing. We want to go ahead and turn it on just a quarter of a turn. Can you see it? Now we have ignition. We're going to go ahead now and fill up the hot liquor tank. We do this by making sure this valve is closed. This is the valve to the mash tun, to the sparge on. And we're going to go ahead and open up the inflow valve. If your brewing system is equipped, you will be able to monitor the water level as it fills up the tank by using the sight glass gauge. Both the sight glass and the 3-inch dial thermometer are protected by a heat shield, as you see hanging right below. Once we see the water level rise up in the sight glass, we can go ahead and turn on the flame for the hot liquor tank. Here I go. I grab my trusty lighter. Turn it on just slightly. Click for ignition. Now I turn it on to a good setting where I know it's not overkill, but it's going to heat the water up as fast as possible. It's always a good idea to watch the water level to make sure it doesn't overflow. If your brewing system isn't equipped with the sight glass, you might want to use a step ladder. Make sure the step ladder is stable and that there's somebody holding the step ladder. Now we are transferring the boiling hot water from the boil kettle through the wort chiller to sanitize it. Make sure the propane control is off for the burner on the boil kettle, or you will burn a hole in your boil kettle. You want to make sure that burner is off before you do anything that's transferring the water to the chiller. Once you're sure that that burner is off, open the valve on the boil kettle, allowing the hot going to go ahead and close the ball valve on the outflow end of the boil kettle. And we're going to fill up the boil kettle with 5 gallons of water and iodophor sanitizer solution available at any Home-Brew shop. Meanwhile, we are heating up our water in our hot liquor tank to 20 degrees above our target temperature for doughing. If we want a 158 degree Fahrenheit temperature rest for the grain, we're going to want to compensate for the grain temperature, room temperature, it's about 20 degrees. So instead of 158, we're going to heat it up to 178. If your hot liquor tank is equipped with a 3-inch dial thermometer, it will make it much easier to check the temperature of your hot liquor. If not, you can simply open up the outflow valve with a cup underneath to fill it up and to check with a regular thermometer what that temperature is. Both ways are as easily effective, and both ways get the job done. You'll want to make sure that there is not too much heat underneath this burner for the hot liquor tank that would melt the lid handle. The burner shrouds are provided to keep the heat within its temperature and to not affect those areas. You also want to make sure that your mash tun jacket and the counterflow chiller are protected from heat. They aren't going to get melted from any excess. You don't want to have the burner on too high. That's basically what I'm saying. The burner's on too high, they have too much heat emitting from those burner areas. If your mash tun or hot liquor tank are equipped with 3-inch dial thermometers, they are fully adjustable and should be calibrated before brew. An easy way to calibrate is to boil water in those vessels and to check the temperature to make sure it's 212 degrees Fahrenheit. There is a nut on the back of each thermometer that you can turn that changes the dial face. You should never leave the burners unattended